From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 7, streaming now.
Restrictions lifted across the state, but face coverings remain a requirement. Thanks for joining us on the news at 7. I'm Amanda Starantino. This afternoon, Governor Eric Holcomb announced most of the state is moving on to Stage 5 of Indiana's Back on Track plan. But he's calling on businesses and individuals to continue safety measures.
And while our numbers are tracking in the right direction, enabling us to further open up, it's because of this.
Phase 5 begins on Saturday. All of the size and capacity limits on gatherings and restaurants will be lifted, but people and businesses are encouraged to continue to follow social distancing guidelines, and the statewide mask mandate will continue. And we are still waiting to learn if Marion County will also ease restrictions, which have been tighter than the state guidelines because of a high number of coronavirus cases. The Indiana State Department of Health is reporting an additional 728 positive COVID-19 cases and 10 deaths between September 16th and 22nd. Almost 2 million COVID-19 tests have been recorded since the pandemic began. The state's 7-day positivity rate for all tests has dropped just below 4% in Marion County. The positivity rate is at 4.9%. Protests are expected in Louisville tonight after a major announcement about charges in the Breonna Taylor case. No officers are charged in her death, but one officer has been indicted. Rena Roy has the latest details.
The grand jury in this case has decided to charge former officer Brett Hankison with 3 counts of wanton endangerment. That means at least 9 out of the 12 jurors voted to charge him with the Class D felony, saying he acted with extreme indifference to the value of human life for shooting into a neighboring apartment, not Breonna Taylor's apartment. If he's found guilty, he could be facing up to 5 years in prison for each count.
Wanton endangerment in the first degree, extreme indifference to human life.
Today, a Jefferson County grand jury presented its report on the Breonna Taylor case, charging one officer involved in the fatal shooting of the EMT.
My team set out to investigate the circumstances surrounding Ms. Taylor's death. We did it with a singular goal in mind: pursuing the truth.
Former officer Brett Hankison now facing 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the first degree, but none of those counts are related to the homicide of Breonna Taylor herself.
We want full transparency. We want the truth. Breonna Taylor's death should not be swept under the rug in any way. Her life matters.
Hankison, Officer Miles Cosgrove, and Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly are accused of shooting into Breonna Taylor's apartment back in March in the middle of the night. However, there was no mention of those other 2 officers in today's hearing.
And our investigation found that Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in their use of force.
Taylor, a 26-year-old EMT, was shot and killed by police when they executed a search warrant. The officers were investigating a suspected drug operation linked to Taylor's ex-boyfriend. No drugs were found in their search. Her death sparked mass protests coast to coast. Demonstrators chanting, "Say her name." Say her name! As they demanded accountability from the Louisville Police Department, which declared a state of emergency ahead of today's announcement.
So we would be looking at would be violent activity, serious property damage.
Breonna's boyfriend, who was with her that night, told investigators they did not hear the cops announce themselves, so he fired a warning shot from his legally owned gun. An officer was injured. Walker is now suing the city and the police department. The mayor has ordered a county-wide 72-hour curfew from 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. beginning tonight. The National Guard has also been deployed to help protect critical infrastructure during any protests. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
One thing's for sure, our weather has been consistent, amazingly consistent, dry, relatively mild days. We've had some clouds around today, but no rain, and that isn't likely to change here in the short term. Climbing temperatures the next 3 days, that's the first headline. There's a second, though, about temperatures that happens next week. We'll get to that in a second. Rain chances remain low. There'll be a chance for the second half of the weekend, and then those temperatures tumble early next week. Southern Indiana, or the southern half of the state, with more cloud cover than the northern half of Indiana. That's reflected in temperature, 66 as you can see in Columbus. Well, it's 75 in Lafayette, 70 in Peru, 67 in Bloomington. There are metro area temperatures. There have been a few breaks in the cloud cover. Temperatures climbing all the way Saturday to 84 degrees. That's the warmest point in the forecast. I'll show you the 7-day forecast and the big change, but then go beyond the 7-day forecast as well, coming up.
A Central Indiana wrestling team is raising money to honor a reserve deputy who died by suicide. This National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, WRTV reporter Cameron Riddle shows us how you can help and what is being done to end the stigma surrounding suicide.
Former Johnson County Reserve Deputy Ramona Jackson is remembered for the love she had for serving her community. Jackson died by suicide in 2019, and now the Franklin Wrestling Club is working to make sure her legacy is about more than the way she died, while also addressing the issue of suicide.
It's even tough for me to say with the stigma, and that's what we're trying to get over here. We want this awareness. We want people to know. We want people to help.
Coach Jim Tante and his team of wrestlers will donate 25% of the proceeds from a golf ball drop this weekend to add Deputy Jackson's name to a first-of-its-kind memorial being built in Texas, which will honor police officers who died by suicide. Tante says the issue of mental health is something that needs to be tackled head-on. It's a conversation he has had with his wrestlers.
We even talked a little bit about how some kids at the high school level get bullied and even pushes kids in that area, to think and contemplate some of the things that we're discussing.
The monument is being built by the organization called Blue Help, which honors the service of officers who died by suicide and offers comfort to their families. According to Blue Help, 125 officers have ended their own life this year. Kelly Lowe is the president of the National Police Wives Association. She says officers who die by suicide are not recognized the same as an officer killed in the line of duty. And it's important to recognize that the people who answer the call for help sometimes need help too.
She went out there as a volunteer, protected and served her community, lost her life to a challenge, but we as a community appreciate that service, and we can recognize that that's okay. Let us help this department grieve. Let us help, as a community, this family, understand that we appreciated what she was, who she was, and what she did for us as a community.
Cameron Riddle, WRTV.
And the golf ball drop to raise money to add Jackson's name to the memorial will take place this Sunday at Tamika Woods Golf Course in Trafalgar. We've got all the details at WRTV.com. Today marks the beginning of a 3-day tribute in Washington to honor Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The justice will lie in repose at the Supreme Court today and tomorrow, and on Friday will become the first woman to lie in state at the U.S. Capitol. Tonight, Joe St. George introduces us to the men and women guarding the late justice's casket over the next several days.
Thousands of Americans will stand in this line outside the U.S. Supreme Court over the next several days just for the chance to stand a few feet from the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's casket. There are, however, a few hundred men and women standing a bit closer, her former clerks. In fact, as Justice Ginsburg's casket arrived at the High Court this morning, it was her former clerks who lined the steps to meet her casket. Men and women flying in from all over the country to be here. They will take shifts now, standing near the casket over the next several days, guarding it, keeping watch, serving their boss one last time. Ginsburg was well known for keeping a close relationship with her clerks. Clerks are young attorneys who, for just a few months in their careers, research and write for justices. Colorado's Attorney General Phil Weiser is a former Ginsburg clerk who spoke with us about what it's been like on the steps of the Supreme Court today.
It's hard to believe she's gone. And so part of what this moment is coming to grips that we've lost such a giant who's meant so much to all of us.
What was her relationship like with the clerks?
She definitely remembered and she cared. My kids both had the chance to get to know her. I brought my daughter here.
Now, it is not a new tradition of former clerks serving as honorary pallbearers. It is one that goes back decades. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
It had been standing unfinished, causing neighbors to wonder what was up. That was over a year ago. Now WRTV is getting answers on this stalled Speedway Hotel. Coming up. Remembering a young Indiana boy and calling for awareness of domestic violence as many are trapped at home by a pandemic. That's ahead when the news at 7 continues on WRTV. New details now to a story we have been following for more than a year. We are finding out construction is expected to pick back up on a hotel project in Speedway. The Wilshire Hotel will sit right on the corner of 16th and Main Street and was supposed to be completed by now. WRTV's Megan Sanctorum has been working to get answers about the stopped work.
This half-built hotel sits right across the street from IMS. And for the past year or so, it's looked like this. But now town leaders are announcing a new partnership agreement and a potential start date for construction. When you look at this prominent corner in Speedway, not much has changed from this time last year.
It's kind of an eyesore right now, just kind of empty and not sure quite what's going on with it.
For more than 400 days, people who live and work in Speedway wondered when or if construction would resume.
We were, of course, excited to have that going, and then it just kind of hit the brakes and it stopped.
Chris Hill is the owner of Dawson's on Main.
Everything looks so good up and down Main Street, and then you get to the end where you can see they've done so much work at the track, and you see that, and it just kind of gives you a bad feeling.
We told you when construction came to an abrupt halt last summer. Town leaders say the developer, Loftus Robinson, experienced financing issues. The developer missed town deadlines for work stoppages and was unable to provide updated timelines. But now a new partnership between Loftus Robinson and Indianapolis-based MHG Hotels will get the project moving again.
We've been looking forward to it for a couple of years now, and so just to get the news this morning, we're very excited.
Town leaders say they are optimistic about this partnership, and they anticipate construction to begin in the spring.
We still have some work to do on our contract as well with them, but it's nice to have a partner that will communicate and jump on things, and we're excited that got done.
Megan Sanctorum, WRTV.
Developer Loftus Robinson released a statement in response to our story saying they are excited to have MHG Hotels added as a co-developer and partner for this project. They said they are committed to seeing this 127-room hotel project through to completion. MHG will manage the finished Hilton Tapestry Hotel, also called the Wilshire Hotel. Standing the test of time sometimes does not stand a chance during a pandemic. Coming up, a historic business closes its doors for good after COVID-19 hit the economy hard.
I'll talk about the big changes that come our way for the first weekend of fall. That's next.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 7, streaming now.
The pandemic has unfortunately claimed another longtime business, an institution in Kokomo for more than 7 decades. Today was the last day of business for Moore's Pie Shop on West Elm Street in Kokomo. No more pumpkin, apple, cherry, strawberry, raisin, and pecan pies, 15 varieties in all. Moore's first opened in 1946, and the store's message on Facebook simply said, "COVID has not been nice to us." Once word got out through social media that Moore's was closing, business was brisk as longtime customers stocked up. The shop says all they had left going into their final day is pumpkin pie. Kevin.
Perfect. Pumpkin pie, always good. Well, temperatures next 3 days, very summer-like. You can wear shorts, short sleeve shirt, enjoy it, as temperatures really through Sunday will be above average, and our temperatures for the weekend will not feel like fall. It'll be more of a summer-like pattern, but it won't last. Early next week, a strong storm system will develop. It's what we call a deep low pressure area, and I think of it as like a hole in the atmosphere. The deeper the hole, the faster the air will rush in to fill it. So it will bring windy conditions to the Midwest, and it will send our temperatures falling on the west-northwest wind. A gradual change Monday, more noticeable Tuesday, and then much cooler on Wednesday. That's the slide into early in the week, but if you look at the pattern even through the first week of October, indications are we'll continue with below average temperatures, which may well mean keeping highs in the 60s, low temperatures in the 40s at times. Below average precipitation, there's nothing on the horizon that suggests we're going to get a soaking rain, which really kind of turns us around from this 30-plus dry stretch, 30-day plus dry stretch. Thursday tomorrow, plan on temperatures right back in the upper 70s, a mixture of clouds and sunshine through the day. Pretty typical of what we've had the last couple of days. We'll end the work week with temperatures right at 80 degrees. The wind will be light out of the south. It'll be a great night for Friday night football. Enjoyable. Skies will be mostly clear and temperatures falling into the upper 60s. The overnight lows have come back up temporarily. Notice the low into Saturday morning will be 60, 64 on Sunday morning. But the warmer it feels this weekend, the cooler it will feel next week. That's kind of the change in seasons once again. Even though we officially changed yesterday, we'll change again from Sunday to Tuesday. We'll be back, I think, with more news after this.
We're going to keep going, Kevin. Remembering a little boy who lost his life to domestic violence. Every year, church members in the community gather to remember Jeremiah Williams, who was shot and killed by his mother's ex-boyfriend. But because of COVID, the annual Domestic Violence Awareness Walk is taking on a different form. As WRTV's Stephanie Wade explains, the message is just as important, if not more, this year, as the pandemic forces people inside their homes who may be silently struggling.
With each step,
he was just an amazing child.
They remember.
He was more than a number. He was a person. He had a life. He had joy, excitement.
The Reverend Arthur Sample and his wife Barbara.
We got the opportunity to meet Jeremiah Williams. And in meeting Jeremiah Williams, we had the opportunity to have a sense of growing young again together.
They raised their great-nephew Jeremiah for 8 years.
Once he came into our life, it changed everything.
When he was just 6 months old, Jeremiah's mother asked the Samples to take him because they say she was in an abusive relationship. But in February of 2009, she called to say she was picking Jeremiah up and that he would live with her now. 5 months later, the third grader was shot and killed by his mother's ex-boyfriend when he opened fire on the house.
We know that even as I speak, someone in the world, and even in our city, is being abused even right now.
So every year, to remember his life, they hold a domestic violence awareness walk.
We want to bring awareness to the world to let them know that you don't have to settle for it. You don't have to settle for a situation. There are people that are concerned, that are willing to help. There are places that you can go for help.
But this year, because of COVID, to avoid large crowds gathering, they're doing something a little different. As the Samples walk to remember Jeremiah in their annual domestic violence walk, they encourage you to walk in your own neighborhood at home as well.
I want to reach 10,000 miles. That's our goal.
Reaching people they've never reached before.
It's happening in your family. It's happening in families down the street.
To put the ownership on the community to demand better for kids like Jeremiah.
As you're walking, think the things that you can do to help us to make things different, to make a change.
Together as a community.
Every step counts. We're just inviting everyone to take part.
Stephanie Wade, WRTV.
The walk will be happening this Saturday. People can register at 3mbc.org and just walk in their own neighborhoods. The goal is to reach 10,000 miles collectively to provide resources for people affected by domestic violence. Time magazine has revealed its annual list of the world's 100 most influential people. Each of the issue's 8 worldwide covers highlights members of the Time 100. Athlete Dwayne Wade and actor Gabrielle Union are shown together on one of the covers under the heading Champions of Change. Another cover shows America's foremost infectious disease specialist, Dr. Anthony Fauci. COVID-19 frontline nurse Amy O'Sullivan is pictured on another cover.
Temperatures at the bus stop in the morning, mid-50s. We jump about 20 degrees, maybe 25 in some spots to an afternoon high, middle to upper 70s. Amanda?
Thanks for making WRTV your choice for news. We'll see you tonight right here at 11.